And we are live. Oh my gosh, we're doing it. We're here. It's all happening. Thank you all for being here already, so many of you. I'm so grateful and honored to have you here. This is very exciting. This is not what I do most days. So I'm excited to do something new and try it out again. And we're going to see how it goes. It's a little bit nerve-wracking. And I'm sure after a little while here, I'll get settled in. While we're waiting, drop in the comments first of all, where you're from, for sure, and where your favorite climbing area is. I'd love to hear what you're all up to and where you are in the world. Patrick M. from Olympia, Washington, welcome. Michael from San Diego, fantastic, welcome. Tim, hello. Furas, is that how you say that? I love that name, that's fantastic. Dustin's here. Oh my gosh, so good to see so many of you. Boy, I am excited. So yeah, tell me where you're from. Tell me your favorite climbing area. And while we're at it, since people are still piling in here, tell me something that you're proud of within your climbing this year. The year's coming to a close. It's been lots of days out in the field, I hope. And I'd love to hear something you're proud about this year. So drop it in there. Nashville, welcome. Cool. Jessica climbing an index, Indian Creek, fantastic. Nashville, Tennessee, Jackson Falls, so cool. Peru, amazing. Indian Creek, Seneca, Stoneham, Mass, yes. Favorite climbing area, Canadian Rockies. Boy, you picked a good one. I might be with you on that one for sure. Amazing. Keep them coming. I'd love to hear from everyone that's on the call. Excellent. So much fun. So I'm here today, and you have to understand that for me, this is strange because it's literally just me here in my office / workout room / gear room speaking to my camera. And I'm getting not much feedback from all of you this whole time. So the more you can be interactive with me in the chat, the more I'm going to appreciate that. And it'll make me feel like I'm not just talking to thin air, which is super helpful, actually. So I'm here today providing this free training because I think I've got something you're all going to really appreciate and enjoy in taking the next step through their climbing. I've been really fortunate my whole career to have exceptional mentors, and I know that's not the case for everyone. So part of what I'm doing here today is trying to pay forward some of what I've learned to all of you. In this training, I'll introduce you to what I call the URMAP Framework, which is an acronym which I made up. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it stands for Universal Rubric for Mountain Adventure Progression. It's just a teaching tool, and if acronyms are your thing, you're in luck. It's a culmination basically of everything I've learned the last 25 years of climbing, guiding, being an educator in the mountains. So I really, truly believe that this framework is something that has the potential to help you progress as safely as possible. Stick around to the end if you're able, and I'll share some free resources to help implement this into your own climbing in the future, okay? There's also some bonuses as well, which I'll share, okay? Let's see, more folks. Dirty Jersey, yes, Shamtown. Leavenworth's the favorite climbing, fantastic. Oh, Jessica, proud of finding joy in climbing again. I'm so great to hear that. Fantastic, congratulations. Proud of being very consistent in training attendance with 2 little kiddos. Yeah, absolutely. Garrett, so good to have you on here. Thanks for being here. Oh man, excellent. Kevin, good to see you. Silas, yes. Fantastic. So this session is officially scheduled for an hour. It'll be pretty close to an hour, and afterwards I'm happy to hang around longer if it takes more time to answer questions from all of you. So please have questions written down, keep them in your head for now, whatever it takes to wait till the end, and we can engage with those questions via the chat. So without much further ado, keep dropping those things in the chat. I'm gonna love to see them. But without much further ado, we're gonna jump right in here. And thank you again for being here. I'm honored, I'm humbled. I'm always blown away by people showing up to these sort of things and listening to what I have to say. I'm just some guy over here in New York that think I have a cool thing to share with you. So thank you for being here. I hope you find this session fun and engaging. All right, we're gonna keep going. We're going to share the screen here, add this up here, just like that. All right, so I have been at this climbing thing for quite a while now. I live in New Paltz, New York. I'm a full-time mountain guide, and I run my own boutique guide service called Alpine Logic, which I started actually here in New Paltz in 2007. I'm an internationally licensed IFMGA mountain guide, having finished my AMGA training about 13 years ago. And after completing that certification process, I received my PIN in 2011, and I began teaching for the AMGA, which is the American Mountain Guide Association. And I've run a lot of guide training courses all over North America in the ice, rock, and alpine disciplines. So I may have seen some of you there. I've also served for 8 years on the board of directors for the AMGA and have served as a president for a little over a year now. And hopefully probably the next 3 years as well. So I honestly, I don't know where the time has gone, but suffice it to say that climbing, skiing, and just general mountain travel has pretty much been my entire life for like 25 years now. It's honestly, it's pretty crazy to think about. Throughout that whole time, my goal as a guide and educator has remained simple and consistent. It's been to just do my best to create exceptional experiences for people across the world, wherever that takes us. For many years, this was exclusively through my work as a mountain guide in the field, splitting time between the Gunks here in the summer, or in the fall and spring rather, the Alps in the summer, and further flung ice and alpine destinations as well. And while I do still maintain a full guiding schedule, the last several years have found me adding in virtual mentoring and personal coaching via 2 memberships that I started 3 years ago, the Ascend membership and Ascend Pro. Ascend Pro is for guides and instructors. Coaching these passionate climbers has been incredibly rewarding, and it's a great new adventure for me. Once I understood what a difference this coaching made, I jumped into the deep end with it and invested well over a year to become a certified trauma-informed coach. It's been super rewarding, and to help others develop skills, become more independent, and create their own experiences in the mountains has just been honestly kind of the coolest thing that's happened in the last 5 years with me in my professional life. If I'm any good at this work at all, it's because I've been willing to consistently dedicate time and energy to it for a very long time. I did some quick math the other day, and I estimated that I've done or had around 5,000 days, I think it was, and 40,000 hours in mountains and crags around the world. So what that made me think of and realize was that maybe I'm a more slower learner than I initially thought I was. But I actually think that that's a good segue. And I think the fact that I didn't get here overnight is actually one of the most useful messages I can pass on to up and coming climbers. Being a climber really is about, to me, engaging in the process of incremental improvement. And to that end, it's critical that we learn how to design and work on our own progressions. So this is the only way I really know for climbers to make sustainable, and when I say sustainable, I mean safe enough over the long term, progress in their climbing. This is a picture of me on dark shadows in college, actually. Despite being drawn to climbing at a very young age, I didn't really get a chance to do it until college. And I still remember how much novelty there was in those early years. It was really exhilarating, which I loved, but I also felt a lot of uncertainty, which was often really stressful. In those early years, I was more often kind of wondering how things were going to go, as opposed to really crafting an experience and living into it. You know, I remember giving myself a nasty rope burn falling on my very first trad lead. I remember being terrified on run out 5-7 during my first Red Rock trip. I've been stressed out biting off more than I could chew. I've been scared to death in lightning storms. I've been disoriented on mountains I know really well. I may not have seen it all, but I've seen quite a bit, and I've experienced a lot over those years. And so thinking back on those formative experiences, I'm not only impressed that I've survived, but that I came back from those experiences with such a renewed commitment to climbing. And as far as I can tell, there are really 2 factors that helped me do that. One is that I gave myself grace when I made a mistake. You know, I was interested in learning from what went wrong, not just chalking it up to bad luck. Every time I fell short, I got back on the horse. I focused on the work directly in front of me and didn't worry too much about getting too far into the future at that moment. This allowed me, again, to make consistent incremental efforts, which over time gather momentum and help me steadily improve. The other key factor that I mentioned already was that I had really exceptional mentorship. I simply couldn't be where I am today without the help of so many amazing climbers and guides. I actively sought out the very best people I could find at different stages of my career to help me progress. Fast forwarding to today, a big part of the professional life I live is dedicated to passing on the knowledge, perspective, and wisdom that I've gathered from all those years of doing this. The goal in creating the Ascend membership 3 years ago was exactly that. It felt like a very natural step and has been incredibly rewarding. So I have to bear with me while I share a couple things that people have said about working with me different places around the world. At this point in my career, my favorite part of the climbing is the people, hands down. I get to work with so many great people, and I'm really quite proud of the relationships I've built over the years. Getting to witness these climbers do things they once thought impossible is just the most rewarding thing ever. So Christian says, when I started climbing in a gym 5 years ago, I never would have believed what I would be capable of today. I've learned skills that have taken me outside, confidently and steadily bringing me far beyond what I ever would have thought possible. And Christian's a climber, skier, kind of all the big mountain stuff as well. And then Gon has said, Silas's advice has been invaluable in helping me refine my skills and decision-making. I've grown into an independent and confident trad climber, taking on routes I once thought were way beyond me. I mean, come on, like, if this is not the most amazing job ever, I don't know what is. So that's a little bit about me and kind of why I put together this training today. I want to get into you a little bit and find out, first of all, like, is this the training for you? Like, are you in the right place? And so let's chat with that a little bit. I'm guessing that some of you are just wondering if you're in the right place or not. And I assure you that no matter where you are in your climbing journey, you're in the right place. What I'm about to share with you is, I think, is useful for all climbers, regardless of where they are in their progression. I'm confident you'll get something out of our time today. For the duration of our call, I invite you to assume what we call beginner's mindset, which probably many of you know, which simply means being open to looking at things in a new and different way than you may have before. There are lots of ways to do things. I'm going to show you just one way to do them today. It's certainly, like we said, not the only way. So to help put your mind at ease, I'll speak to a few common narratives that I've heard over the years from my clients and coaches about this resistance. So a lot of times resistance will get in the way of being just really present with what we're trying to learn, and it's being able to stay in that beginner's mindset. Kind of like if you got to worry about using the bathroom or your food stress, you probably can't learn. So I want you to be able to be present here and really take in everything we're about to go over. So if you think, I don't really need this training, I can figure it out on my own, that's true to a point, for sure. There's no doubt you can probably figure a lot of this out on your own. It may just take a little bit longer and be a little bit riskier, especially in the early part of your career. This training is probably too advanced for me, or the inverse, which is probably too basic for me. Regardless of your experience level, I promise you the URMAP framework will be useful for some aspect of your journey. It's simple enough for new climbers to implement easily, while it's also robust and nuanced enough that even expert climbers, I think, will find it beneficial. I personally still find it useful planning for bigger or more complex objectives myself. I designed this framework to be universally useful across different types of people, all types of mountain environments, etc. So you're also in the right place if you're thinking, I'm ready to level up, I want to become a more well-rounded climber, or I want to understand and manage risk better in my climbing. You're in the right place. Which brings us to why I think that. And why I think that is that regardless of where we are in our climbing, we all want to feel the same things. We all want to be capable of doing hard things and solving problems. We want to feel confident when challenged. We want to feel strong and capable, both physically and mentally. We want to feel poised. We want to feel calm in the face of danger. We want to feel like, I've got this. So if any of these things ring true, please pop them in the comments. I'd love to hear a yes or absolutely or heck yeah from anyone who may agree there, please. None of us want to feel stressed out. We don't want to feel unsure that we're up to the task at hand. We don't want to be in over our heads. We don't want to be too far outside our comfort zone. We want to feel excited about what's next, not overwhelmed. We want to be what I refer to as a hell yes to taking on these hard, dangerous things. So then what's the future that you want to create? In a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to share a climbing dream with us in the comments. But before I do that, I want to share a couple key concepts that I think are foundational to being a lifelong climber. The first is that confidence comes from competence. Everyone wants to feel confident. The more we know and understand, the better choices we can make and the better we feel about them. 2, seeing more of the big picture is empowering as a climber. Viewing things from a broader perspective helps us to play to our strengths when needed. 3, we each have something to work on to become a more well-rounded climber. That's just the reality of climbing. No one is an expert at everything. It's also the beauty of climbing. There's always something to work on. And 4, understanding our weaknesses and intentionally working on them is probably the single best way to keep developing as a climber. Coincidentally, these are also the inspiration for the U.R.M.A.P framework. So let me check out a few of the comments here today. Oh, good. So many yeses, heck yes, agrees. I like the heck yeah. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Yes. Yes, for sure. Awesome. Happiness looks like. Y'all are amazing. It's really fun to have you all here. Thanks for being here. So I guess it's time to reveal the big to-do. So are you ready to see the full picture? And you can pop it in the comments or not. Either way, we're going to keep going. So it's not rhetorical, but it feels a little bit rhetorical when you're on your webcam in your basement. So let's get into it. This is the U.R.M.A.P framework. I have 2 goals really with this whole U.R.M.A.P framework training today. The first is that by the end of this session, you'll feel more confident taking on the next steps in your climbing progression, whatever those are. The second goal is that you'll be able to better assess which of your climbing dreams are aligned with your current skills, right? Which ones are you ready for? So regardless of whether you're just starting to climb outside, you're learning to trad lead, you're taking your rock skills into the alpine, U.R.M.A.P will give you the tools to plan your next adventure. These tools will help you understand the risks you're taking better and ultimately help you be more successful. We all know that a little bit of stress can be helpful, keeping us engaged and focused, while at the same time, too much stress can be debilitating. So the key question then for climbers is, how do we make consistent progress without taking on too much risk? In other words, like, how do we balance being adventurous on one hand with being super conservative over the course of a multi-decade career on the other? So this is exactly the question the U.R.M.A.P framework was designed to help you answer. It's meant to help you create climbing plans that are appropriate for you, challenging, enjoyable, yet within your abilities. And to me, striking that balance, exciting yet achievable, is what climbing is all about. By feeling more confident we've chosen the right adventure, we can engage more deliberately, executing on our vision with more commitment. And by understanding the variables and risks at play, we can also make better decisions before and during our climbing days. I'm probably a little bit biased, but I think you're going to love the U.R.M.A.P framework. Okay, please imagine your dream climb, something that really lights you up, and drop it in the chat. I'd love to hear what you're all thinking about and where you're headed. Michael, ready to send. I love it. Amazing. Let me know your dream climb. I just amazingly, I just had a friend and mentee of mine, Ryan Hargis, who I guided on the Grand Traverse in the Tetons when he was 11. Co-guided with some friends, he and some other friends, on the Grand Traverse in the Tetons when he was 11 years old. He just climbed Serra Torre via the Ragni route. And my mentor and co-teacher in the AMGA, Tom Hargis, his father, sent me a text yesterday saying that. And I'm just like so amazingly proud of Ryan, first of all, but also a little jealous because of all the things I'd like to go climb, Serratori is pretty high on the list. So let me hear what your ultimate route here is. Nice. The Nose, yes. Mount Baker, David, yep. Jessica, northwards of Stewart, fantastic. Yeah, that's a classic one. I haven't done that. The Matterhorn, ooh, the Matterhorn. Mike, you should hang around because there's going to be some good info on the Matterhorn here. Garrett, Dream Climb, Push Myself Physically, amazing. Yes, any of the 82 4,000 meter peaks in the Alps, fantastic. Yep, love it. Off the beaten path, Billy, I like it. Becky Chenard, South Hauser Tower, yes. West face of the Apocalypse, the Revelations, amazing. Ragney Route with me, yeah, that sounds pretty good, Dustin. We should probably go back there. Prime Rib, Climbing the Alps, Crack Baby, oh yeah, Kandersteg. Oof, man, that would be awesome, Patrick. So cool. Heart of Darkness and J Tree. Oof. Lotus Flower Tower, amazing. Prime Rib Mazama. Y'all are so cool. This is great. Okay, so you know, I'm asking you to share these things because, to be honest, like I've personally struggled sometimes even saying those things out loud, because it gets a little bit real when I say things out loud. It means that I might have to actually get my butt in gear and follow suit with some action. So it can be daunting, but it's also really exciting and encouraging. So yeah, keep those things coming. The more that come up, Levitation 29, absolutely. The more things that come up, just keep popping in the chat. The whole session here. I'd love to see what they are. Okay, so let's get into this whole U.R.M.A.P thing a little bit more. So the saying I have with this graphic is you're building from the bottom up. So team before terrain, terrain before timing, and timing before techniques. As a mountain guide, my job is to create experiences for people in the mountains out of thin air. And when all the variables align perfectly, as you all know probably, it can be absolute magic, right? U.R.M.A.P is a glimpse a little bit into my thought process and mindset when planning these outings, whether it be rock climbing, alpine climbing, ice climbing, etc. So I like to think about this graphic as a progression of building blocks, starting at the bottom and stacking them on top of each other, just like a layer cake, working upwards. So just like a layer cake, each category above relies on the one below to provide a stable platform. So the choices we make in one layer directly affect the subsequent layers. And as we build out a particular layer, we gain a lens or a context through which to view the subsequent layers. So as we go through this model, I encourage you to keep zooming way out to like a 30,000 foot overview within each category in an attempt to keep seeing the bigger picture, and then zoom back in to see the finer detail. I liken it to like using Google Maps on your phone or something. We can zoom in for detail and out for context. And I want to keep doing that both in this model. Also, while you're lead climbing or something, that's a pretty helpful thing to do as well. But just keep zooming in and out to see context and detail. And by doing that several times over the whole process, we can paint ourselves a more clear picture of the overall kind of big picture and how the individual pieces create the whole. So again, team before terrain, terrain before timing, timing before techniques, and techniques before tools. Each category is important, of course, but the sequencing through the progression is vital. Again, keep in mind, decisions we make in the base layers will directly affect the ones above, okay? So let's keep going here. Broadly speaking, the whole idea of this framework is that I'm encouraging you to ask the right questions in each category. We'll get into a whole bunch of like specific questions soon, but I'll offer to start that I would consider these three kind of basic fundamental questions universally useful through all of our climbing. And so I'm asking myself these things all the time. What problems might I need to anticipate on this outing? What problems might I need to avoid completely? And what problems might I need to solve during the outing? This is what climbing is all about, right? Like we're voluntarily tackling the single hardest problem we can think of every time we go climbing that we think we're capable of actually handling. So we're voluntarily picking the hardest darn thing we can think of that's still accomplishable. Yeah, when you put it like that, it makes you wonder about this whole climbing thing, but that's neither here nor there. So these questions we should be asking all the time, and you probably already are asking these questions in some kind of way, but maybe just never seen them put down on paper. Let's keep going here. Another way to think about these categories is by these two columns on the left and right. And I really like the combination of all three of these three columns because they're all saying the same thing, just in a different way. So, one might work for you better than the others. On the left column, we start with the bottom, the why. And that's kind of what I was just mentioning a minute ago. Like, I can't give you the why you should be doing this or want to do this. That's kind of up to you. But above that, we have who is first, who is with our team first, where we're going to do it, when we'll be there, how we'll apply ourselves into the terrain, and then what to bring to facilitate that experience, right? On the right, we have conditions, skills, and gear. And what I really like about this section is that you can see the combination of either timing and terrain or when and where create conditions, right? So that refers mostly to like travel conditions or indoor climbing conditions, right? It's also worth noting, like I said, the why piece, you're on your own. So let's jump into each one of these categories and we can go through a little more detail into each one, okay? For me, climbing begins and ends with the people I choose to be outside with. It's important that we choose objectives that are appropriate for our team. We all know that being on the perfect route for our team is one of the best feelings ever. And we also know that being on a route that's too hard for our team or too dangerous for our team is really hard to recover from. The concept is simple, right? Choose the right people and the right rope team for the things we want to do. We have a good chance of them going well. And in the event of things not going well or as planned, our team is capable of adapting or problem solving on the fly. Each of us enjoy and appreciate different aspects of climbing. We all have different experience levels, skill sets, biases, strengths, weaknesses. I'm simply noting that being thoughtful about the makeup of our team is important when planning your adventures. So who we choose to tie in with colors every subsequent decision we make before and during an outing. Of course, it's also fine to reverse engineer this concept, starting with terrain and finding a partner to fit into what you want to do. But the bigger point here is that whoever you choose to go out with will directly influence everything else about that trip. So choose your partners wisely. Some examples, and we'll get into like more details here shortly, but some examples, questions that are in this framework I'll offer you. And this kind of 2 team little blurbs on the right side are directly from the PDFs I'll share with you. A couple example questions are, how challenging will this be for you and your team? Are there concerns or questions regarding your team? Who else in the field, aside from your rope team, will be there to support you? Who's your emergency support team? Who will be mentoring you in preparation for this outing? That sort of stuff, right? And we'll keep going, but those are some examples of kind of what you're looking for question-wise. Okay. Yeah, if you have questions, don't be afraid to pop them in, but I might have you pop them in again later at the very end when I have a time to actually go back and look at them. So keep them going if you want. The next, oh, hi, Enzo. Enzo's my puppy, and he's a little fur ball that likes to be in the mix of things all the time. So the next category we have is terrain. And as the saying goes, location, location, location. Terrain is where we choose to put ourselves in the mountain, and it's the most important factor in determining our chance of success and the amount of risk we'll assume. There's a reason that classic climbs exist, whether we're talking about great ranges of the world or your local crag, right? Generally speaking, they have high quality movement, they have solid rock or snow or ice, and are relatively safe from objective hazards. We all know that getting on a route that's above our pay grade really sucks. And if you've done this to yourself, it's a good time to drop in the chat and just share what route you hosed yourself on and got in a little over your head. Again, where we choose to put ourselves in terrain is mission critical, right? Once we have a potential route in mind, it's helpful to zoom out and see the macro scale of the terrain. This perspective can start to develop a more holistic view of all the factors at play. So that zooming in and zooming back in, zooming out and zooming back in piece. This is helpful in identifying objective hazards, such as rock or ice fall, identifying avalanche hazards, terrain traps, such as gullies or unsupported features. Once we understand the hazards, we're better able to avoid them and or mitigate the risks involved as we see fit. It's also helpful to understand the overall scale and seriousness of a route. And that's something you're probably more familiar with if you live in the Alps or in the European countries somewhere. It's a little bit more foreign to most people in the U.S., but knowing the complexity and the difficulty ratings will help determine if the route's appropriate for you or not. These things also aid in determining how much time you'll need to plan and train for the trip in general, respectively. In short, choosing the right terrain, whether a peak, route, or crag for our team, lays a solid foundation from which to build our plan. Solid terrain selection allows us to better manage risks, challenge ourselves, and set our team up for success. Some example questions in this category could be, what's the character of the climbing? And some of these things, as you go through the list of questions, might be something you already know, might be off the top of your head, or might require quite a bit of research. And that's kind of the whole idea here, is that the goal is to answer all these questions, whether you know them off the top of your head or not. So what's the character of the climbing? What's the overall mileage and vertical gain and loss? And if it's a multi-day outing, per day. How long will the outing take? Number of days, number of hours? Are there bail options? Are there many bail options, or is there just like one or two? How complex is the route? That's a whole other ball of wax, but this is just an intro for now, so I don't want to get too sidetracked. How well traveled is the route, and what are the most significant objective hazards you might encounter on the route? Okay. Timing. Once you've chosen where to climb, we should next decide when we want to be there. The combination of pairing terrain with timing, as we said, creates conditions, and conditions matter a lot. If you've ever attempted your red point in the scorching sun and 100-degree heat, you know that conditions and timing matter. If you skied a couloir that you thought would be spring corn, but it was frozen ice, you also know that conditions matter. If you've ever had to tuck tail and sprint away from the ice cliff because there were falling icicles around you in the afternoon sun, you also know that conditions matter. So again, the combination of where and when to be in terrain, specific terrain, is like 90% of the equation in determining how likely our success will be and how much risk we'll be assuming. If we nail the timing, end up being in the right place at the right time, we find good conditions, things become relatively easy. Blow the timing, as in the example I just mentioned, and it won't matter, I promise, how badass you are. Life's going to be really hard and potentially very dangerous. Again, try to modulate the scale at which you're viewing this category from. It's a very simple concept, but there are lots of different implications based on the scale you're viewing it from. So try to zoom out, see that 30,000 foot macro view. The seasonality level of timing is a great example to start here, and then zoom back in for the more finer details. As an example, I've been adjusting my summer season in the Alps like 3 to 4 weeks earlier in the season in an effort to take advantage of more seasonal snow and cooler temperatures as we get more kind of global weirding with climate change. As your trip gets closer, reorganizing the kind of medium level, meso level timing of where exactly to be day to day, like over a trip of a week or two, is really helpful. Attempting a route based on ideal weather patterns, conditions, precipitation, etc., is really important at this stage. And then on the day of our outing, we switch to like more of a micro kind of view of the whole thing. And we're trying to think about the hours, right? The right hours of the day to be in certain places on the route. Considerations for solar exposure, highs and lows of daytime and overnight temps, winds, travel conditions, etc. Again, if we nail it with this category and we're in the right place at the right time for our team, we've gone so far towards creating a successful and safe enough outing. Some examples of the questions in this category would be, when's this route typically in best condition, seasonality-wise? What conditions need to be present for this route to be a go? What conditions are a no-go or red flag? What weather should be present for this route? How much preparation time will be needed for this route? Hours, days, months, years, etc. Right? So you're starting to paint a picture of what it's going to take for you to go make this thing happen. All right. So, oh man, team, terrain, timing, techniques. I think overall, this is probably the category that climbers think about the most and put the most stake in when it comes to planning and preparing for climbing. If I can just climb a little harder, or if I can just learn that new skill, then I'll be able to fill in the blank, right? And that's true to some extent. Like solid movement and technical prowess go a very long way. They're just not everything, right? Focusing in this category pays dividends if the previous layers of team, timing, and terrain have already been carefully crafted. So once we're clear on where to go, when to be there, we can focus on the techniques needed to be successful. Sarah Torre, good example, right? If you're there at the right time with the right people, and you're appropriate for the route, there's these big like snow mushrooms. So you better know how to climb really steep, unconsolidated snow mushrooms, which I guess you kind of figure out on the fly. Anticipating the problems we might encounter is a great way to determine which techniques you'll need to have dialed in. This is the category that really the Ascend membership, as a little aside here, is largely based on. Like I break this techniques category kind of into three smaller subcategories. One is movement and fitness, which are two different things for sure, technical systems, and then mindset and stress management. So some subcategories there. And as far as which questions are worthwhile to ask in this category, I'd focus on primarily what I think individual cruxes of those subcategories are. So in other words, like what will the movement crux be? What will the fitness crux be? Like going uphill for 4,000 vertical feet in knee-deep snows, much different than having to climb 512. What about the most challenging technical systems will there be in this case? What do you imagine will be the most stressful part of the outing for you, etc. So once we have a handle on those elements, it's helpful to imagine what pieces of the puzzle might also be new for us as well, right? That we haven't experienced before. Lastly, taking some time to ponder which aspects of the trip might be totally unknowable, regardless of how much research we do, can also be really beneficial. And then armed with these answers from these questions, you'll start to develop a sense for what the training and preparation should look like. All right, making sense so far? It's not really rocket science, but cool. So the top one in that pyramid we are looking at is called tools. And this is also gear, etc., like what to bring, right? And those of you who know me on this call know how much I love gear, fancy gadgets, latest, greatest tech, like I'm all about it. But that said, it's important to keep in mind that what we carry usually matters a lot less than everything else we've experienced so far. All those layers below are going to have a lot more weight carried with them if you make a mistake there. So if you're going to make a mistake, make it in the top tier and forget something as opposed to blowing it in the previous layers. The planning done in the previous layers should make choosing what to bring fairly straightforward. Ideally, we'll choose tools that are versatile, lightweight, help us solve all the challenges we've already forecasted. This category includes gear for the approach, the route, the descent, but should also include gear needed for a change in plan, having to bail, etc., right? Transportation, navigation, emergency equipment, they kind of all fall into this bucket as well. Some examples of the questions here on the right side. What tools and gear will be important if we have to bail? What red flags would indicate a no-go or bailing? What will be the mode of travel to be en route in less than ideal conditions? What will the mode of travel be if you have to bail, right? Sometimes you have to travel some different way or different terrain if you do bail. What tools will be important if there's an emergency? And what tools will be important in the event of having to evacuate somebody? And so, we're all climbers, obviously, right? Our rescues are impromptu and on the fly, but having the right equipment to address certain things that are important like that is obviously a big part of climbing. All right, amazing. So this is most of the question list I just showed you, and this is one of the PDF downloads you'll get at the end here. Once we understand the theory behind it, it's pretty simple to implement. This free PDF here, I've also got a Google Sheet, which has a easy to fill out kind of section with a blank template for you. There are also two more examples in there. One of this route called Enduro-Man, the Gunks, an example for the Hornley Ridge on the Matterhorn, which are examples I filled out just to kind of give you a sense for how it might look if you were to do that. And we'll see, we may have time to go over those today, but we probably won't. You'll kind of go like with these categories of the URMAP, right? Team, terrain, timing, techniques, and tools. You'll do 2 passes through each one. The first one being kind of a more like high level 30,000 foot view, and then a big break of some kind of time I'd recommend at least doing 100 push-ups and 100 pull-ups, however long that'll take you. Even if it's several days or even weeks later, it might be more helpful to go back through then for the finer level details of the other set of questions. You'll just gain more perspective and be in a different mindset to kind of go through some of the similar questions, but oftentimes slightly different questions to get you to the end result. So in addition to the 5 major categories, I've also included a bit of a gut check at the start and the end of each one to just check in with yourself and see how the objective feels. For those of us that live in our heads a lot, this is a great chance to just listen to your body a little bit, figure out what it's actually telling you about the route. And maybe it's telling you that it's a great idea, and maybe it's telling you that you're a complete fool for thinking about all this stuff right now. So either way. So my goal in creating these lists of questions, which is just a sample, right, was to strike a balance between getting enough good information to cover all the major considerations while also remaining concise enough to be user-friendly. So that's the balance that's been working for me. This is just, like I said, something I made up, and you can feel free to adjust or annotate as much as you feel like it, okay? But that, in a nutshell, is the U.R.M.A.P framework. Whew, that's a lot. So it's a lot of talking for me without any feedback at all. Let's go to the comments for a second. Silas, slide looks cut off. Yep, I know this. Thanks, Patrick. This slide is a little cut off. You'll get this whole thing sent to you, the actual PDF. It's just a sample for now. Let's see. Vice Farmer Sunny. Amazing. Yeah, hang on to those questions. We will get to my promise. I just can't get to them right now. All right. Cool. So let's think about, just think back, 43 minutes now to the beginning of this webinar, and let me know which of the layers have you historically focused on the most in the past. So of those 5 layers, pop those in the chat. Which of the layers have you personally focused on the most? And which one have you historically focused on the least? And maybe just give me like a least or a most in the comments. Which have you historically used the least, which now you realize might be really useful in your pre-trip planning? Okay. Cool. Amazing. Cool. Hopefully, you're starting to see that your dream climb might be a good candidate for using this framework. Okay. Cool. So let's recap a little bit. We've seen this U.R.M.A.P framework be used for climbers, regardless of experience. You've gotten a glimpse into my thought process behind planning climbing outings. And I've given you a progression to work through with a ton of great questions to ask yourself in order to better understand potential outings. Ultimately, I've given you some tools to create consistent progress in your climbing without hopefully taking on too much risk. So I really hope that U.R.M.A.P will help you create climbing plans in the future, and it's useful, and that you'll take it and run with it a little bit. All right, fantastic. So we've covered a lot so far. We're just going to check in a little bit, see how it's all landing for you. You can answer these questions in your head. You can drop them in the chat, whatever you feel inclined to do. Are you happy you stuck around so far? Could you see using this framework as a guide in the future? Has the U.R.M.A.P taken some of the guesswork out of planning climbs? That's a big one for me. It's just nice to have it all in one place. So I hope you said yes to that one. And do you see how using U.R.M.A.P in conjunction with a mentor would allow you to make consistent progress quickly? Would you be open to spending more time with me going deeper into the U.R.M.A.P framework and finding other climbing practices that'll have you climb more confidently than ever? Because really from here, what you have is 2 choices. The question is, do you keep doing it on your own, or do we do it together? The first option, doing it alone, you can leave here and you can keep doing this thing on your own using what you've learned from your U.R.M.A.P framework so far and your years of experience. It's a viable option and one that will likely get you where you want to go. It may take a little bit longer. There might be some bumps in the road as you learn things the harder way, hopefully not the more dangerous way, but you'll likely get there eventually where you want to be. The second option is that you implement this framework into your progression and move forward with my full support. This path is virtually guaranteed to get you the results you want more quickly and hopefully more safely than going it alone. So for anyone interested in the second option, being supported in your next steps, I'm going to chat just a few minutes about exploring one way to do that. Sound cool? Spoiler alert, it's called the Ascend membership. And after we talk about Ascend for a few minutes, I'll get to all your questions for as long as it takes here. Okay, so the Ascend membership, for those of you who are wondering, how the heck can someone become a better climber virtually? Let me assure you, it's not only possible, it just might be the perfect supplement to your days at the crag. Nearly 5 years ago during the pandemic, I figured out how to translate a lot of my in-the-field skills and knowledge into digestible chunks via virtual sessions. Essentially, I started creating a database of resources that I would have liked to have had in my early years myself and started sharing it with people. I started compiling information, techniques, and wisdom that I gathered from 25 years of doing this into one place. And it's accessible from anywhere in the world that you have internet. So the benefit to climbers like you is that now, from the comfort and convenience of your home, you get to receive world-class mentorship and guidance for a fraction of the cost of a usual guiding day rate. The Ascend membership is a coaching subscription where you'll join other climbers on live monthly calls to discuss a variety of climate-related topics. We do deep dives into all sorts of skills, techniques, technical systems, mindset trainings. We share win, we study accidents and near misses. We learn ways to manage risk. All things mountains and climbing are welcome. Inside Ascend, every member receives access to every single recorded call we've ever had, which now, after 3 years of doing this, is up to 44 calls. Each call is between 1 to 1.5 hours long. Most calls are exclusively with yours truly, but I do have a few calls, several calls, where I've brought on a guest speaker and they've spoken to their particular expertise. We've had a variety of topics over the last 3 years, kind of from everywhere you can imagine. We've talked about fixed point lead belay, we've had glacier travel talks, crevasse rescue, dealing with stuck rappel ropes. We had a 3-part series on lead protection, nesting gear, and staying off the ground when on leading, which was super fun. Did a 2-part series on mechanical advantage and hauling, another 2-part series with Gunks legend Rich Goldstone on spring-loaded camming devices. He also did one on how to be a good second, which was amazing. My good friend and colleague Dick Chassé did some mountain navigation sessions. Mark Chauvin came on and did a Cal Topo session with time planning and route planning. John Tierney, who's a first mentor of mine in college, did a really amazing session about what is defining competence as a climber. We've discussed fall factors. We had Ryan Stefuk talk about climbing in Newfoundland. We had technical rescue sessions, just to name a few. We've had, like I said, like 44 calls. So they're all in there and they're ready to be watched from anywhere you would like to. There are also some instructional videos inside the membership. I keep adding to those consistently over time. I'm currently working on a self-rescue and partner rescue video course, which I'm really excited about. Lots of good content in there that I think will change some things for some people for sure. And again, all this content is viewable anywhere you have internet. It's easy to access with your phone via an app. You can choose to listen to it in a podcast style while we were traveling or on the go. And you can't do that with all of them because some of them are actually very, very technical. And you'll actually probably want to have a rope handy to practice along with the video. And not to blow my horn too much, but I do think one of the most valuable pieces of the whole membership is that you have access to me on a regular basis. I'm here. I'm happy to answer questions, make recommendations about kind of any and all things along the way. Another huge benefit of the membership, I think, surprises a lot of people, is just how amazing the community within Ascend is. This is a crew of people from all over the world that are getting after it in their own way and being as responsible as they possibly can in that pursuit. There's a huge variety of experience levels and climbing abilities, and each and every member has brought something valuable and unique to the community. My goal with the whole Ascend thing was to create a safe and fun learning environment. and a place we could speak openly about challenges, concerns, fears, and whatever else people have been dealing with that gets in the way of their climbing. The shared goal of wanting to learn, make progress, and engage with climbing safety, climbing safely enough is what keeps both me and the members coming back for more. We have an active Facebook group that may get rolled into the membership eventually, but right now it's an active Facebook group, keeping everyone up to speed and connected. To be honest, it's just really hard to convey how much joy I get from seeing this community do its thing. The partnerships and friendships that have developed through Ascend, and just the general level of support that I think everyone feels and shows just really warms my heart. It's a place, Ascend is a place for all experience levels, all abilities, to feel like you belong. If you're looking for a place to learn, gain confidence, take your climbing to the next level, we'd love to have you along. And I'm going to share a few more testimonials because they're just fun. I love testimonials. Joshua says, the Ascend membership has been an invaluable resource of information and inspiration. The vastness of information and support from the community is worth its weight in gold. Neil says, being a member of Ascend helps me stay accountable, motivated, and focused in my climbing. I feel safe in a supportive group of people who want to learn, share, and grow together. Silas doesn't have all the answers, that's true, but you will get a real answer from a highly credible source. Thank you, Neil. The Ascend membership mitigates what has been the largest obstacle in my proficiency, from Eric. Receiving trustworthy, consistent, accessible mentorship. When I'm out climbing, more of my bandwidth can be used to focus on climbing well, since my terrain choice and technical systems are better planned and executed. Can't argue with that. Amazing. Thank you all for sharing those things. So normally in the climbing world, getting this kind of ongoing mentorship requires hiring a guide for multi-day programs, which cost thousands and thousands of dollars, right? Ascend is not $4,000. It's not $400. It's $330 for one whole year. All it takes to be a member is willingness to grow, and less than $28 a month when you commit for the full year. This is my official invitation to you to join the amazing Ascend community for just $330. Click the button below the video if you're in the webinar room. If you're watching from YouTube, a link is in the description. You can also just type in a chat bar or a search bar, bit.ly/2ascend. So bit.ly/2ascend. And we're going to drop it in the chat right there too. For those of you who are here live on the call, I've got a couple bonuses to share with you. For anyone who joins Ascend during this call, which is not going to last a whole lot longer, you'll receive a private one-on-one video coaching call with me. This is a 20-minute Zoom call that can be about whatever you want it to be. You can bring any questions, concerns, anything you have at all, and we'll make the most of our time together. So 20-minute Zoom call with me if you sign up for Ascend today while this call is still live. If you can't sign up on the call, which again, I'd recommend, it's not the end of the world. I'm also offering a special small group coaching call for an hour to everyone that signs up for Ascend by midnight Eastern time on January 5th. So yes, that includes the sign up today as well. So if you sign up today, you get both. Wow. Scheduling of these calls will be done once I know who's been signed up and where, what times are good for all the new members. So again, just to be clear, if you sign up today on the call, you'll receive a private one-on-one call and the small group coaching call for free. If you sign up by January 5th, midnight Eastern, you'll get a 1-hour small group coaching call with all the folks that are signed up by then, okay? If all this is sounding great, but you can't really quite invest the upfront to pay for the whole year, there is a month-to-month option, which is $33 a month. In comparison, the yearly commitment saves you 2 months at $33. So, of course, there's a chance that with any investment, there's a risk you won't love it the way you hoped. If that's the case, you can cancel at any time, no strings attached. And as in any journey, taking that first step is often the hardest. That's where having a coach or a mentor can make all the difference. The best coaches understand our abilities better than we do ourselves sometimes and can lovingly nudge us closer to our full potential. I've personally experienced that with all sorts of guidance from employers and colleagues over the years. And I think that the most powerful moments of my career have been when I stepped outside my comfort zone in pursuit of the thing I wanted, despite the knot in my stomach. Having someone there that believes in us and sees the best versions of ourselves is what the mentorship model is all about. It's what Ascend is all about. I'm here to offer you a way to integrate professional mentorship from me into your climbing journey. Ooh, who knows this route? This was a bit of a moment for me. This was climbing Suppers Ready in the Gunks a handful of years ago. Chris Voltaggio took that photo. So some of you are already a hell yes. Yes, Michael, you're in. I'm so glad to have you. Thank you. Yahoo. Yeah, who else is going to be in? Let me know in the comments. I can't wait to meet you, Michael. So I'm going to speak a little bit, just for a couple minutes, to those of you who are on the fence. So raise your hand in the comments here if you are my pragmatic thinkers and warriors. I guess that maybe some of you are experiencing some resistance to committing, despite knowing actually that you want to sign up for Ascend, then it might be a good fit for you. It's all good. This is in no way a hard sell. If you need time to think about this, you should absolutely take all the time you need. What I do want to speak to, though, is that this not yet, be patient, or no way you can pull this off right now voice that's playing in the back of our head and is keeping us playing small. You see, the thing about that voice is it got developed in humans 300,000 years ago as a way to avoid getting eaten by saber-toothed tigers. That voice does a fantastic job of keeping us alive and surviving in life. But the trade-off is that it hasn't really evolved very much since then, and has a way of making every risk feel like it's saber-toothed tiger level risk, which I promise Ascend is not. So because of that, it often keeps us from thriving and getting what we truly want. On the other side of that voice and resistance is the life we've all been wanting, but may not know exactly how to get. So on the other side of what's stopping you here today, there may just be a breakthrough waiting to happen for you in your life. I've heard lots of examples of resistance in my days of coaching climbers, and I'd like to run through a couple of those right now. The first, I don't need this. I can figure out on my own. Again, you're probably right. If you'd rather remain the lone wolf and figure out everything on your own, I totally get it. As a recovering lone wolf myself, I see you. There's certainly some benefit to going it alone and figuring it out yourself. However, most climbing requires partnership, and I promise you that every win you have will mean more when it's shared with people you care about and who care about you. I don't want someone telling me what to do. I am with you. Only crappy education tells you what or how to do things. High quality education is about empowering you with the why behind techniques and giving you tools you need to make your own well-informed decisions. Great mentorship is about helping you be more of you. You don't have to do it alone in order to do it your way. Another one is, I'm not a real climber. I just climb to have fun. What you have to understand in this, if you're in this camp, is that you're already a real climber. No matter the reason you're climbing, you're a real climber. You've already started the journey. Learning how to learn and trusting yourself and engaging in the process is the magic and challenge of being a lifelong climber. This one I love. I can't afford to invest in this crap. And as harsh as that sounds, it may be true, and I honor that. If it is true, I'm hopeful you've gotten some good value from this training session already. And again, this is not a hard sell. I do not want anyone to overextend themselves in order to become an Ascend member. However, for many of you, the resistance in this financial investment is probably less about the money and more about you choosing to prioritize your own wants and needs in your life. You might be a person that's great at being there for everyone else, but for some reason just can't quite show up the same way for yourself. If climbing is truly something you're passionate about, the chances are good you can afford to do it and invest a little bit in yourself this year in the name of becoming a more well-educated and safer climber. I've personally never regretted the investment of money, time, energy, blood, sweat, or tears into any version of my future self. And if it's more about spending money on gear, I also get that. But I promise you that the new CAM will not help you make progress the way the Ascend membership will, especially if you're early in your career. And the last one I'll address that comes up oftentimes is climbing is scary. It just stresses me out too much. And if you're in that camp, if you're intrigued by what climbing might offer you, but are convinced it'll always be scary, what I'll say is it just might be time to try something different and new. It might be time to give climbing another shot with some real support from a real world-class mentor and an amazing community of climbers. Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot in there. There are certainly risks associated with trying this out. There's no doubt. But there are also risks associated with not going after what you really truly want. For some of you, that risk may be getting just stuck in the same place for way longer than you expected. And in my opinion, the risk of not trying is much higher than giving it a shot and seeing what is possible. I genuinely believe that for most climbers, Ascend offers a faster and safer way to reach your climbing goals. Okay, so big breath. We're at exactly an hour in here, almost like I planned this. I want you to think back to when you signed up for this webinar, and I want you to think about like what made you sign up for this training in the first place. Okay, and did you get what you came for? Also, like, did you catch a glimpse into what might be possible for you in the future? This is your chance to try something totally new for you and see how it feels to be supported by me and the entire Ascend community. All right, we're getting close to the end here. So drop in the chat if you've already signed up. I've gotten a couple signups already. Trying to purchase now and running into internal server error. I'll get my crew right on that. All right, maybe try that new link there, Mike. Let us know. Okay, let's get to some questions. Again, we'll try that link in the chat if you need to. If you have any questions about Ascend or anything else, I'm going to go to your questions momentarily. If you've already posted a question, like we said before, drop it in again for us so we can revisit it. And the gift for you is there are a few things. The URMAP diagram and PDF should be a clickable button in the webinar room. And if you're watching on YouTube, you might have to go into the description and you should be able to find a link in there. You'll also all receive an email that has all this information in it as well. And if for some reason you don't get that by the end of the week or like Wednesday or Thursday, please email me right away and we'll get that sent back out to you. Okay. But you'll get a PDF with the URMAP diagram and you'll get a Google Doc with both a blank template and examples of a rock climb in the Gunks called Enduro Man and the Hornley Ridge on the Matterhorn as well. Okay. Should be good. All right, let's take some questions then. I'm gonna remove this thing here. I'm gonna bump this up so I can see what's going on. Oh man. What questions do we have? There's gotta be some questions. Don't be shy now. And I'm hoping someone can pop those questions into a place I can see them. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, Billy, cool. You found the Ascend membership helpful already. Thanks, Billy. You said making a mistake in the tools section would be more forgiving than in any of the previous section. How is that? Well, Fierce, I think I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name right. I think that it depends on the tool. If you drop the rope, that's going to be a problem. But you know, forgetting a piece of gear, if you're again, if you look at like these things as like bigger picture things first, and you nail the big picture stuff, but you forget a little detail, like something you may not be totally mission critical, then that's going to be okay. Obviously, if it's a piece of gear that's like makes or breaks the climbing, like a crampon or a rope or something like that, yeah, game over. I hope that answered your question. Let's see. Brooks, thank you. Oh, even a dad joke or two in Ascend. Yep. Yeah, we get some of those in there for sure. Patrick, getting in over our heads Where does pushing the envelope fit in? How far over our heads is okay? Does it fit into a specific level of the framework? Oh man, yeah, Patrick, I'm with you. That's like the question all the time, right? I think it's just, for me, I guess, with this framework, it just helps me become a little bit more concrete and put it down on paper so that it's clear the choice I'm making, right? And I'm not trying to encourage how much risk is smart or wise or you should be taking. I'm just trying to help us understand the risks better, I guess, would be my answer. How much risk we all assume is so personal, like even day to day, hour to hour, right? Some days you're feeling it and want to like push a little bit, and some days you're not. So I think that's my answer. It doesn't tell you how much risk to take. It just helps you understand the risks better. Does that help? Awesome. Let's see. Any more questions? There's got to be some questions here. I'll scroll back up through the whole column here.
Hey, Silas, they're all in the private chat.
Oh, the private chat. Look at that. We had a private chat the whole time. Amazing. Okay. Okay. As a guide, how do you manage this team element when you don't get to really choose? It's a great question. How do you manage the team element when you don't really get to choose? I think it's more about understanding what terrain is appropriate for the team that you have, right? So any of these things can be optional, like options that we choose, and any of them can be things that we're put into or forced into, right? Any of the categories. And so in my mind, like if I'm guiding and I meet a client for the day, and my first move is like, okay, like let me understand what this person's capable of, how well they move, what they want to do, like how physically capable are they, how mentally robust are they, like how much risk do they want to take, etc. Like how emotionally stable are they, and able to take on these risks. And then I can start to craft like what I think the terrain would look like that I want to take them into, right? So, you know, the hardest example that I think maybe something similar that you're referring to is like I get a team of clients that are on a specific objective on a mountain, like say like north ridge of Mount Baker, right? So I get handed these 4 clients with my co-guide, and my job is to guide these 4 people up the north ridge of Baker. Like that is the objective. It's my job as the person in the field to determine if that's appropriate or not. Like, do I feel good about doing that, right? Like, do I feel confident in my team's ability to take on that objective? And if I don't, I just got to be really honest and mature about saying to these people and myself that we're not doing that, or this person isn't going to do that, right? So I think it's, to me, like this framework, this tool is a way to hopefully empower us to see how these things do fit together and paint this big picture that gives us some backup to say, I don't know why I don't feel good about this, but I don't feel good about this, right? I want to be, again, a hell yes to taking on this dangerous thing with these people. So I think that's my answer. And let me know if you'd like any kind of clarification on that further beyond that. Okay. Awesome. We answered the tools question. Patrick, it seems like it's hard to know how to apply this without a mentor / more experience. Well, I mean, I think that all of us benefit from having mentors at every stage of our climbing career. You know, like I remember quite vividly being like in my 2nd year of climbing, I think, and my mentor told me in front of another younger climber that, oh, you just need a mentor like Silas. And I was like, whoa, like what are you talking about? I've been climbing for 2 years. Like I'm the mentee here. Like I need to be learning from the people, not teaching people. But I think that the point was really good, was that we can each be a mentor and a mentee at any point in our careers, and that maybe we should be striving to do that all the time, right? So there are things about our experience and our abilities that we have to offer. And there are also things that we have to gain from other people. So, but there's no doubt that having a mentor and working through this progression with some guidance is definitely more powerful and faster and safer, for sure. Great. It's so interesting answering questions without feedback, because I hope I answered your question. How do you use experiment with getting in the zone before a climb a route? How would that look like if it's the case? How do you experiment with getting in the zone? I mean, I think you mean like flow state, kind of the zone. And I mean, that's the goal for me in my climbing all the time, is to be able to end up in flow state whenever possible. There's a bunch of factors that influence that, right? Both internal factors about me and my mental and physical state, but also external factors of the environment. And I think that that's part of what we're trying to get at with this framework, is there are lots of things at play. And so I don't know, that's a good question. Before a climb a route, I mean, visualization, if you mean like mentally getting in that space, yes. That comes to mind more than like physically trying to be in flow, like on the approach or something. But I think that trying to get in the flow state, or that kind of stage before you're actually there in person, is a really great tool, a great strategy, for sure. Can you talk a bit more about building a mental robustness? Yeah, absolutely. Mental robustness, I mean, another way to think about that is like just your ability to manage stress and where your nervous system is all the time. And, you know, we all have different capacities to handle emotions and to process emotions. And I think it's worthwhile for all of us, each of us, to work on building a body and a mind that can just take more and handle more. And at the same time, hopefully be putting ourselves in situations where we don't need to be handling as much all the time. So working this progression through something like the U.R.M.A.P framework is a really great way to incrementally just ratchet things up and experiment with getting like just the right amount of input and energy without totally blowing up and going too far too soon and becoming overwhelmed, right? So building robustness, I think, comes from both those things. Building a body that can handle more stimulus from the outside and be more grounded in yourself all the time. And at the same time, not putting yourself in situations, in environments that get you jacked up, right? Like, it's really possible to do that in climbing, like every day, minute to minute. We can go too far too quickly. So two-pronged answer to that. Patrick, thoughts about listening to your gut? Sometimes I feel like I'm not feeling the lead, and then I go for it and have a good time. And then sometimes I don't. Yeah, I'm totally with you. That sounds like being human. I'm glad I'm in good company there. The gut is a really good indicator. And sometimes it feels funny because you ate bad Thai food. And sometimes it feels funny because it's cueing into something you might not notice about the terrain or your environment. And so I think first understanding that there's some stress there is the first step. And the second part of it is trying to understand where that stress is coming from, right? If it's, one example would be like a G-rated climb that you're leading that has really crazy exposure, right? Like, I still remember climbing Cathedral Peak, 24 years ago, and it was the 5.4 pitch on the summit, and just like thinking it was like 5.9 because of this just sheer exposure there, right? And I wasn't physically in danger, but I was mentally maxed. So I think trying to figure out, and it's hard to do on the fly, on the lead sometimes, figure out like, where is that stress coming from is a big part of what we try to do in climbing. And if you can think about it in a pragmatic way, even having to come down from a lead, for example, and really like suss out or evaluate more, not while you're actually on your fingers and toes, can be a great way to kind of like just to base it in reality more than just what you're feeling on the fly. But I think that's one of the beautiful things about climbing, is that that's part of the process for all of us. And I know that for me, just in the last 3 years or so, that's really changed and started to evolve. And the other part of it, I think, is that when you're not feeling it, what are you telling yourself about not feeling it, right? Like, what's the judgment you have when you're like, I'm just not feeling it today? Like, what makes you push through that, right? Is it that, well, if I don't climb this pitch, I'm not a real climber, or something like that? Or you're going to feel a lot of shame and guilt from not doing those things? I don't have time for that stuff anymore. I want to be a hell yes to making those hard, dangerous things happen. And if I'm not, it just means I'm still sure in the opposite direction, right? If I'm not a hell yes, I'm a hell no. Really simple. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I'm also, Zachary, I'm curious what's the demand of rock climbing guides in the Northeast? What's the demand of rock climbing guides in the Northeast? Needs more guides, or now there are enough? Let's say having an apprentice rock guide certification experience. I think climbing is getting more popular by the day still. And I think that while guiding is a really tough profession to make a living in, and over the longer term, and it's dangerous and kind of a weird thing to do, it's been super rewarding for me. And I think that there's always room for people to follow their passion and to do something they love. So if you're into it and you're willing to work hard and do what you got to do to make ends meet over the long term, I think that there's plenty of room in the market for that. If it's someone who's not very excited about this profession and wants to like just dip their toes in, I think it's gonna be hard to make it very sustainable, is my gut feeling. But I think there are a lot of guides in the Northeast, but I think that there's still even more climbers than there are guides available. So yeah, cool. Well, that's all the questions I have here right now. Are there any more that people want to throw up there? Amazing. Cool. Well, you still have time on this call to get a free one-on-one call with me if you go and get to it right now. We're gonna wrap up just a couple more things here. I'm gonna kind of bring it all home, and I'll let you sign up for a couple more people if you want to, and you can pop one more question in there if you want. But just to kind of summarize what we've done so far today, we have gone through the URMAP framework, where you distinguished the hierarchy of how to think about planning your next objective. We talked about team before terrain, terrain before timing, time before techniques, and techniques before tools. You've got an opportunity in front of you to be mentored by some dude who happens to be the president of the American Mountain Guide Association, and who is trained to listen not just for what you want, but also for what's stopping you from being the most confident and badass climber you can be. That's me. And yes, as it turns out, I do love folks who are willing to take a risk in the name of getting what they want. So anyone who signs up for Ascend before 12 midnight Eastern time, January 5th, gets a free small group coaching call for 1 hour. If you sign up in the next 30 seconds to a minute, you get a free one-on-one call with me for 20 minutes, and we'll talk about whatever your heart desires. If you sign up for an annual membership, you get 2 months free, basically. And if there are no more questions, I want to thank all of you for being here, for your time, for your attention. It was honestly really fun to be here with you, and I hope that the URMAP framework has given you some tools to move forward with. I also hope to see you all in Ascend very soon. Are there any last questions? Oh, good. Josh, so good to see you. Do you go into the URMAP framework extremely specifically, or do you leave some things open-ended to set yourself up for success? For example, planning an area rather than a specific route. I do both, Josh. Great question. I try to get really specific, and I try to like work out exactly the details of what I want to do, right? The other side of that is that I really think having options is important. So, you know, when I have someone hire me for a week in the Alps, for example, I'm telling them, look, like, we're going to go like the Matterhorn is the goal here. That is the objective for the week. However, we have options in addition to plans. And so I need to have a breadth and depth of other options available to me in case things aren't aligning the way I want it to with that objective, right? So I don't want to be forced into completing the one objective I have committed to, even if it's not a good time for it, right? So I want to have a variety of options available that I can change, plan, and make the most out of the day, no matter what happens with weather conditions, my fitness, any of that kind of stuff, right? So, you know, it might be a situation where you could even go through the U.R.M.A.P framework for a couple different routes on the same mountain, or a couple different scale of routes for that week, for example. But you're just trying to build a library of all these things to set you up well for success. Like, I mean, at this point, you know, having been going to Chamonix for whatever it is, like 13 years or 12 years, I have a library I've built that I can just kind of like, oh, like this is the weather this week. This is who I'm climbing with. I'm just going to like pick this one and pick that one. And then we'll maybe do this one Wednesday, but oh, actually the weather's kind of crappy. So let's just do this one instead, right? Just like going to the Gunks, I can walk the carriage road and I can choose based on the U.R.M.A.P framework exactly where to be that day to have a fun and challenging outing that's not too crazy and not too boring. So awesome. Great question. Fantastic. So cool. All right, gang, we're going to sign off here. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Please hit me up inside the Ascend membership on the Facebook group. Feel free to Instagram me, message me, whatever you want, YouTube as well. I really look to meeting you in person. Yeah, David, re-enrolled. Darn right. I appreciate you, man. So good. And I got your email about Mount Baker. We're going to chat. Fantastic, y'all. Have a great night, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon.